Even scarier.
Commissioner Lant, we are live.
Good evening. I want to bring the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission's study session to order. This is a electronic Zoom meeting, February 2nd, 2022. And first item of on our agenda is additions or deletions to the agenda, and I believe we have one addition. Director Black.
Yes. Could we add a discussion about the open position for the commissioners, or for the commission position, and talk about the discussion we had with the city council on Monday, and start talking about a process?
Yeah,
so that would be discuss open commissioner position and process for filling.
We'll add that right after public forum. Okay, any other additions or deletions? Hearing none, we'll move on. My understanding is that we have no one for public forum in general, only somebody for a specific item. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so then let's move on to the selection of a replacement commissioner for our ex-Commissioner Gardner's position.
Sorry, I'll just lead off on this, and then Commissioner Lant can fill in, I'm sure. But did the other commissioners have a chance to watch the meeting on Monday night? Just so I know how much to explain. Okay, so Monday night's council meeting, Monday night's council meeting, the councilors discussed the process to replace an elected position. The charter in Article 3 states that it outlines how many elected positions there are in the city of Ashland. There happen to be 6 councilors, 1 mayor, 5 parks commissioners, and 1 city recorder. And if any of those positions are vacant for any reason, and it actually lists the reasons why they might be vacant, but if any of them are vacant for any reason, it's the city council as a body, it's their job to, quote, elect a new person to fill the seat until the next general election, when I believe it's actually the next election, when that person would have to run for the seat if they wanted to keep it. This has happened several times on the city council in the 7 years that I've been here. With the Parks Commission, the last time it happened was 2013. And that was when Mike Gardner was appointed to his position. And Mike Gardner had also served before that time as well, and was elected and has been elected several times since then as well. So his position is the one that is vacant now. The council discussed the options. It was reported to the council that the commissioners had made a recommendation that the commissioners be involved in the selection process. In fact, Commissioner Lant and I met with the city manager and talked to him about the previous process in 2013, which the commissioners were involved in, and even provided him with some questions that we thought would be appropriate in screening applicants before the vetting process. Long story short, the council decided and voted to allow the Parks Commission, or to make part of the process that the Parks Commission would accept applications and would conduct interviews, or vet, if you will, the applicants, and send the top 3 applicants in ranked or priority position or ranked position to the city council for their approval. It kind of went back and forth a little bit whether it was going to be 1, it was 2, and then before I knew it, and I don't even know how it happened, it was 3. So it is 3. That's what they voted on. It is their purview to decide what the process is. The commissioners will be doing the interviews, and we'll send those 3 if we have. Well, I'm sure we will have 3, but a lot of times people will drop out throughout the process, which happens a lot even in regular elections. But we'll send the commissioners will send 3 up. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping on how we would do that, and then I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lant. The process for getting applications and this whole process in general is a citywide process. Just like when you 3 were elected at different times, it was a citywide process. It's all a citywide process. So we will use the resources that we have in Ashland Parks and Recreation and the city's resources to get news releases out, to publish to Facebook and other social media and news groups or whatever it is that we generally do, and we'll try to reach as far and wide as we can. We also see, and we would love to hear from members of the community if there is a group or a representation of a group that is traditionally not represented at this level of government, so we can reach out to them as well for diversity and to make sure that this body is as well-rounded and as representative of the community as it can be. We will also we'll also work with the city recorder's office to be the clearinghouse for the application process. We are working with the city recorder's office at this time to develop an application which will be similar to any application that you would have filled out to run for office, with just general information about the person and some background questions. And then those applications, once the time period has closed, which is something we need to talk about, will come to the Parks Commission. And then from there, that's where the commissioners need to decide what process you want to follow. With the city council, I've seen it done a couple of different ways. Generally, the councilors have taken the time offline to meet with each candidate personally, which is one option. I've seen it done in other cities where the candidates have to come in a public meeting and kind of be interviewed in front of everybody. That's one way to do it. There's several ways to do this. But you will have to make your recommendation in a public meeting regardless. So we're here to assist. We're starting to get the ball rolling as far as the logistical part of it, but as far as dates, timeframes, and process and how you want to do this, that's really up to the commissioners. The last thing I'll say is that we have 60 days from yesterday, which basically gives us all of February, all of March, plus I think 1 day or 2 days or something like that. So that's about the amount of time that we have, or that the council has to appoint someone. So we have even less time than that to get the recommendations in front of the council. Commissioner Lant.
Well, I think you outlined it fairly well. Do the other commissioners have any questions about the meeting or what Director Black has outlined? Go ahead, Commissioner Lewis.
The last date of filing for this position, what's the thinking along those lines?
Well, that's where we need direction from you. Do you want it to be a 10-day period, a 14-day period, a 7-day period? But we need to, we could try and get the period started this Friday, try to get the word out this Friday and get it going, or even Monday. But it hasn't, the official process hasn't begun yet, but the clock is still ticking.
What I would suggest is that it be a 14-day process, but with today as the beginning date. It's a public meeting. We've already had applicants. People know about it already. We're just trying to, we want to flesh that out and hopefully have as robust a list of candidates as possible. But I don't see why we can't just start from today. And you folks need to begin the publicizing this tomorrow. Just need to get going. That's
Yeah,
my,
I think we can accommodate that. And you're right, this is a public meeting. You could make the announcement. It starts today. But I think we could get the press release out tomorrow.
Commissioner Lewis.
And I would assume the Zoom meetings, that's how we're going to do this process of interviews.
Well, that's
After the
up to
14th.
you. Well, let me just say this. So, as far as meeting in groups, we are restricted from meeting in groups. I can do a little bit of searching into individual meetings, but I think that has more to do with the individuals than anything else. And then the other thing I would say, and just going back to what I said before, it's your choice whether you want to split into groups of 2 and conduct interviews and kind of cross over so everybody interviews everybody, or if you want to do it individually. There's a few ways you can do this. You can also do it so it's a group and you have the person come on and you just interview, all 4 of you interview at the same time. There's probably more options than that, but those are the ones on the top of my head.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Lewis.
When I've been involved in interviews for staff positions, HR made it pretty explicit that you have to ask the same questions, so keep it all on the level playing field. So we would want to maybe formulate the questions, and then each candidate would get the same questions, and then at the end they can make a statement or something. I don't know. It seems like we want to be pretty formal about that system, and so I agree with the 14 days. I think starting today, we got this period, and we might want to look at the calendar, find the dates for the council meeting that would work. That's far enough ahead that they could maybe even miss that and still catch the very last council meeting at the end of the 60 days, because I think it's important that we really get this finished within that time period. And I don't know if that's a recommendation from the city's charter or it's a legal thing.
It's not a recommendation. It says it must be filled within 60 days.
Okay.
Commissioner Eldridge.
If the application period starts now and you want to apply, what should you do?
So what we will be telling everybody in a press release, and what I can announce here tonight, is that the applications will go through the city recorder's office. Now, people can contact us. They can contact any one of us individually, but to submit an official application, they need to go through the city recorder's office. There has to be one clearinghouse, and that's going to be it. Go ahead.
And the city recorder has an actual application to send them at this time, or they will by tomorrow, or?
They will by tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, I guess that answers my question.
Commissioner Lewis.
And for a non-elected commission position, I think what I've had in the past for the Historic Commission was I would submit a letter of almost a resume and answer the question, why would I want to be a historic commissioner? And there's some of that, but that's for the non-elected commission positions, and then the mayor makes that decision. It was what I'm assuming, and then the council approves that recommendation. Is that for the non?
Over non.
Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Eldridge.
So I know that probably Michael Black, Joe Lassard, maybe Commissioner Lant and potentially you, Commissioner Lewis, have already received emails of interest. Will each of you be taking responsibility to pass along applications or to connect those people to the city recorder, or should they once again contact us?
I will. I believe I've only received 2. I will do a search of my email, and I will send the information directly to the 2 people who contacted me. We did get a contact the commissioner form today. We will let that person know as well, and any others that could have come into any other places. I would just ask that everybody take the responsibility to send them to the city recorder's office. But also, if anybody is listening who may have already contacted us, they don't need to wait for that information. I can give the email out right now of Melissa Hudala, who is the city recorder, and the phone number as well, if this would be an appropriate time to do that.
Sure. Chair Lant probably decide.
Yeah. So the city recorder, which is also an elected office, her name is Melissa Hudala, and her email address is melissa.hutala@ashland.or.us. Again, that's melissa.hudala, HUHTALA, @ashland.or.us. Now, you can also, and I just did this just really quickly, I just went to Google and typed in Ashland City Recorder, and she has her own web page that you can go to, and you can click on a link there to send an email. It also has her office number. She should be very accessible, and we will be working very closely with her and keeping track of helping her keep track and sorting the applications as they come in so that we can present them to the commissioners. So that's the big thing today, the timing. We could, Commissioner Lant and I can talk a little bit more offline, and if anybody has any suggestions for the application process, you could bring them up now. But the plan actually, as of now, is to follow very closely the process that happened in 2013, which is that there would be an application, and on that application there would be 5 questions, and I'll bring those questions up here really quick. And the applicants would be expected to answer those questions, and that would be the application. If you wanted to do anything different, you would have to talk about it now so that we could inform them or make the process how you want it.
Just a point of interest, those questions, or what we used before, basically with one additional one about education. But those 5 questions are very close to the questions that are in the that one must answer in the voters pamphlet. So I think that's it's a logical and I think reasonable approach.
And those questions are simply stated. Oops, I just lost them. Where did that go? Okay, there it is. I'll read those for you now. Number 1, and this is in addition to some basic name, address, contact information, things like that, which would be, obviously kept. Well, anyways, it would be part of the application process and part of any application with the city recorder. But number 1, what do you think are the biggest issues facing the Parks Commission and Recreation Commission currently? Now, this is a funny little nuance because you call yourselves the Parks and Recreation Commission, and for some reason, there seems to be a little bit of a hiccup with some people about the Parks Commission and the Recreation Commission, because they're actually created at 2 different times and in 2 different sections of the charter. But historically, and for all intents and purposes, the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission is the Parks Commission and the Recreation Commission. And the charter even says the Recreation Commission is created and will be the Parks Commission. But it's sometimes you're going to see this from now on here and there, is that them being separated out.
So let's just not do that.
Okay.
Let's make it the language that we're used to. I see no reason to to follow a hiccup that is somewhat nonsensical or could actually be more confusing.
I agree with you. Number two, so the first one is what in your opinion are the biggest issues facing APRC? Number two, do you have experience working with local governments, paid or volunteer? And the question is, if yes, please describe. Number three, do you have past non-governmental volunteer experience? If yes, please describe. Number four, why are you interested in the joint positions of Parks Commissioner and, why are you interested in the position of Parks and Recreation Commissioner?
And then there's a fifth one, correct?
There isn't a fifth one. The fifth one is it wasn't included in the background, and I have no idea why, because we did send it. But the fifth one was educational background,
Right.
which just for the record, educational background is also on the questionnaire for when you're running for office.
That was my point.
So
yeah.
it's consistent.
And I would just change that and make that switch 4 and 5 around. So 4 is education and 5 is seems like that's the way those things usually happen. Is the last question is the one that's a little more open-ended.
Yeah. So that will be the application. Unless you have anything you want to add and want to discuss and give me direction, I'm going to proceed with the application like that.
Is there anything else that we need to discuss related to this tonight? I think we have a little bit of time because it's going to take 2 weeks before we have an application, have all the applications available to us. And at that point, then we're going to have to do some sort of a process. Do we need to run over the process now or at a later time?
We don't need to do it right now. We are meeting again next week. We could, or the chair could outline the process. The chair and anyways, however you want to do it, but it does not need to happen right now. Now, I can tell you though that most likely, well, it's going to be up to you, but you need to be making a recommendation at the latest in the March business meeting, at the very latest. You may want to make the work session a business meeting and do it in that, or hold a special meeting. And the reason why I say that is because the Parks Commissioners are vetting the applicants, but the City Council, it does want to review them as well, and they want to review 3 of them. And what I wouldn't want to happen is the City Council feeling like they were pigeonholed because they were presented these at the last possible second. So I think in good faith, which I think we always are practicing good faith, it would be a good idea to try and get through the process and do the interviews as soon as possible, which I think the soonest opportunity would be the first meeting in March.
Commissioner Eldridge?
Suppose we only find 2 candidates suitable. Is that, I mean, what if 3 people apply and we only think that 2 are appropriate for the position? Can we send 2?
Well, the direction on the process from the council is not nuanced.
That's
Sorry,
true.
Commissioner.
That's true. It's not nuanced. But at the same time, we are an elected body, and our job is to do what we think is best for the citizens. I think let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But, and I hope we have so many applicants that becomes, I hope we have lots of good candidates, and that's a moot point. But I don't think it is a foregone conclusion to answer to your question, Commissioner Eldridge. We'll cross that bridge if we have to, is the way I'd like to approach it.
Sometimes there isn't a top 3. Sometimes there's a top 2 and nothing else. But okay, sounds good.
Commissioner Lewis.
according to the Mail Tribune article, which for what that's worth, I read that today, we will prioritize the three, and that's our recommendation. So I think however that works, if there was one, let's say, that didn't fit the bill, we would just say that, but leave them on the list. So it seems like a pretty simple way to do that, but we just send them our priority list and then let them do what they will.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. And getting back to how the process can work, I think what I'm going to suggest is that Director Black and myself, between now and our next meeting, come up with a proposal for how the process is going to work, and we'll present that next week at the meeting.
Sounds good.
Anything else we need to talk about on this item? I don't believe there is, but correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. All right. Next on agenda is long-term organizational funding strategy discussion, and this will be led by our Director Black.
Okay. So let me just switch gears here really quick. Okay, so I kind of gave you a little bit of information, a little bit of opining and on the current situation with long-term funding. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on as far as the strategy and kind of moving forward and figuring out what the general fund situation, which will be going forward, and that will directly affect Ashland Parks and Recreation, since Ashland Parks and Recreation is primarily funded through the city's general fund, and it has been for forever. There was a period of time where before the money hit the general fund, it actually was brought over to Ashland Parks and Recreation. Then with Measure 50, it all went to the general fund and then was divvied out, but it was the same amount. So the city is still working on evaluating the general fund. The city manager is working on identifying what services are mandated versus let's say quality of life services. And we actually had a discussion about this today. And I have some thoughts about this. And I have, this is not a secret. I've put this in memos in the past that, generally cities will, when there's a funding shortage, they will resort to funding the public health, safety, and welfare first, and then quality of life matters will be evaluated whether or not they can be funded based on priorities of the community and things like that. But the city needs a police department, the city needs a fire department, toilets need to flush, water needs to flow. But the quality of life issue is not a minor issue. A lot of people in the community have made this community their home because of these quality of life issues. There's a lot of correlation between property values and the quality of life. There's this community offers lots of different quality of life amenities, and Ashland Parks and Recreation is one of those, a large one of those. You've got the culture as well, the downtown, the university, the school system, lots of different things. But Ashland Parks and Recreation is one of those things. And, I think, when you ask people about Ashland Parks or Ashland, we were just talking about this a few minutes ago, a lot of people would respond, oh, yeah, parks, university, SOU. Those are the things that come to mind when people think of Ashland.
Excuse me, I think you said the university twice. I think you meant OSF.
OSF, yes, sorry, OSF. I apologize. the Shakespeare Festival, the university, and parks, and not in any order, but a lot of those go hand in hand. And in fact, I was just in Lithia Park today and recalling, when the COVID wasn't going on, and the kids from all over Southern Oregon and Northern California were coming to Ashland, sometimes to spend an entire week. And how the park, we would just be inundated with these buses on a daily basis. My kids were part of that. They all participated with OSF and during the summertime with SOU programs and lots of different things. And the park always, especially Lithia Park, but some of the other parks also played a big part in that. And I don't think that can be downplayed. What I am concerned about, and I'll just throw this out there really quickly, is the separation of parks and recreation. And that concerns me for a couple of reasons. But one of the reasons is, and when we're asking why would we be bringing up this charter issue when it's never been an issue before, where Parks Commission is in one section, Recreation Commission is another section. I think it's kind of concerning because it looks like it's kind of separating the two out, like they could potentially be separated from each other, and parks could be on its own and recreation could be on its own. And that's troublesome to me, because our system is fully integrated. Our parks and recreation doesn't operate independent of each other. There is so much overlapping and interconnectedness that it would be hard for us to continue to provide the park system without recreation, and definitely the recreation system without parks. So that whole separation thing is questioning. I question it, but I'm also concerned by it as well, and question the need for calling that out. But the reality is that the Parks Commission is the Recreation Commission. So when you say Parks and Recreation Commission, it actually is valid. So back to where we started, which is the funding going forward. The city is trying to work through this process and work out the general fund. They're going to be going through processes. We already know, this is not a secret. I'm not giving any new information. The council has stated that they want to do a survey process, and the point of doing a survey process would be to gauge the public on what their desires are and what they feel the necessities are versus those desires and those types of things. So that's happening right now. We know that. We've talked about that. I put in here that, as they're going through this process, most likely we're going to be identified as one of the biggest quality of life service. And there's no statute from the state of Oregon or federally that says that you have to have a Parks and Recreation organization. There are a lot of historical reasons why we're here. There's also a lot of, again, quality of life issues. There's contracts that we have. There's the charter. There's the city codes. There's MOUs, which are memorandums of understanding, and intergovernmental agreements. But when it really comes down to it, the city, in looking at the general fund and looking at Ashland Parks and Recreation, eventually it'll probably come down to is the city going to cut to reduce expenditures to address the general fund issue, or is there another option out there, like a potential revenue source that could be identified? Those are the two big issues, I think, going forward. I'm giving you all this information just as background. There really hasn't been any major developments happen, but I think it's important that we continue to talk about the situation, that we also talk about the real issues and not talk around the issues. The real issue, I think we've talked about here today. There's not enough money to go around. And when you fund the essential services, what's left has to fund all of the quality of life services that are left. And the city doesn't have enough money in the general fund to do that, to fund all of the quality of life services that this community currently enjoys. Okay, so we're moving forward with that process. Eventually, there will be a survey that goes out. That survey should bring in information from the public. I think that will help the city council decide how to move forward and to make hard decisions on the general fund. Now, there was there's a lot of other history too, but in fact, over time, well, anyways, I won't go into all of the details of how the funding, all the different levels of funding and different funding sources that we've had in the past. But there's always been a very strong Parks and Recreation presence in this community. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is Commissioner Bell, who's not here tonight, but he asked for 3 different things, or at least 2 things in the meeting last month. And one of the things he asked for was a kind of an evaluation of a budget situation. And I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about that, but I'm going to talk kind of about some observations that I have. I'm not going to do a presentation and give you the exact numbers. We're too early in the process to be giving you exact numbers about our projections on staffing and our liability in providing the services versus the revenue, or our expenses versus the revenue, and if we have a shortfall or not based on certain levels of funding. So I'm just going to talk about it tonight with you and give you kind of some ideas of what we're looking at. And what we'll be talking about is the beginning next July, which will be the beginning of the new biennium and going forward. Now, we're funded for this fiscal year and the fiscal year after this one, which will encompass this biennium. So what's up in the air and the cliff that we're talking about moving forward is the coming biennium. So one of the things that was asked was to me was, what would it look like if we had the same scenario where staff was at the same level next biennium, and funding from the city of Ashland through the general fund was exactly the same in the next biennium. I can tell you right now, and I've told you this before, and I've used the term we're heading for a cliff because we're using money from our ending fund balance to kind of float the boat, if you will. That next biennium, if we are at the same funding level that we're at now, which is the equivalent of $1.89 per thousand for general fund funding, we will be at about a $750,000 deficit each year. That'll go up between the first and the second year. It will go up. That's the same funding. That's the same level of staffing that we have now. And just to remind you, the level of staffing we have right now is COVID staffing. So we are at 34.75 FTE. Several years ago, actually not that long ago, just a few years ago, we were at 41 FTE. So if we continue at the same level of funding with the same staff, we will be at a deficit of around 750,000 in the first year, and that will go up in the second year. It could be as high as 950,000 in the second year. So if we advanced and we're able to bring back a few staff members to fill a few spots, especially in recreation, where we're hoping that they will be opening up and providing more services. They will also be bringing in a little bit more revenue as well, but that factored into it, we're still going to be, if we're at $1.89 funding level and we bring back 2 full-time equivalents, then it just gets bigger. Obviously, the deficit would be around $900,000 per year. Now, if for some reason, some scenario, we were able to get up to $2.09, we would still not be out of the woods, and we would still be looking at we could potentially bring back some staff and things like that, or not, but we would still be looking at it's a smaller deficit, but I do believe we would still be in a deficit even at $2.09. Now, and you might ask, well, how could that be the case when several years ago at $2.09 we were able to fund that staffing level of 41 FTE? Well, it's said all the time, and I think everybody has agreed that one of the big issues we're facing is the rising cost of services and the rising costs of PERS, insurance, central service fees is the biggest one, actually. The rising cost of those are far outpacing the rise in revenue. So we're now paying, several $100,000 more per year in central service fees, which will just go up in the next biennium. We're paying more PERS, we're paying more insurance, we're paying more for gas and water, and we're in a drought as well. And people, we hear this from people who also tell us cut. We want to see you cut as much as possible. We hear from sometimes the same people who are saying, why is the grass not green? Why are we looking at a pond that isn't being flushed out in the upper Lithia Park? And these are things that we hear from people who expect, there's an expectation that services or the costs of services go down, but the service levels stay the same. So we want to meet, and we are always striving, and we do everything that we can, all of our employees, all of them. We're all trying to do everything that we can to exceed expectations and to give people the best experience they can when they come to the parks or participate in recreation. We're at a point now where we no longer can do it to the expectations that people have in a lot of cases because of the costs of these, for instance, water. Being able to water the grass during a drought is not. Well, how do you put? You can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess you could say. If TID runs out, and we've only budgeted to run off of TID because we don't have enough money just to spend all of our money on potable water or culinary water to water the grass, there is going to be an impact. So anyways, I'm getting off base here, but all of these things lead to an increase in expenses that far outpaces any increase in revenues. So that's an answer to that question. Again, this is just a snapshot. In fact, the minutes actually said just bring a snapshot back based off some quick number calculating or crunching, if you will. We've been able to make some preliminary observations, I guess you could say, or snapshots for you of what it's looking like going forward. So that was the first item. Did you want to talk about that?
Commissioners? Let's move forward. Oh, go ahead.
Just one comment, getting back to the survey, since this is the one thing that we had discussed quite a bit, and we all have our opinions on the viability of this survey. But I think it is one way to get this story that we were just listening to out there, and that if you do actually care about the Parks and Recreation, then you need to step up and do the survey or get to the council somehow and comment on this issue, because I think we're giving everybody a certain amount of lead time, and everybody thinks, well, this is the next biennium, but they do come up here actually fairly quickly. So we decided not to go to the May ballot, and we decided to potentially have something for the November ballot, but the survey is still something we want to get on board with. And I'm not sure how that's going. And I know these things take a long time, but still we want to be there early and often, and make sure we have a lot of these questions are about this non mandated revenue part, that if you have the quality of life is important, and I mean, if we look at the school district and how much we ponied up for all these new buildings and stuff, obviously we care about the education system. And we can all discuss how SOU is slowly eroding away and OSF is having its issues, but there's a lot of families in this town that totally depend on what we're doing. And that's our group, really. And whether you're young, old, or in between, we really need to get that word out. And if the survey is the only way we can do that, or any other way, we can think tank at some point about how we can get the information out to all these groups and say, hey, this is the time when we need to unify and get on this single message about how important this is. So we've listened to this, we know the dire situation is, and we've listened to it before, and we will have this discussion again. But I think it's the solution part of it is, how do we get to at least a 209, and you know, at least that would be somewhat helpful. But we have to realize that everybody else is in the same boat, not to use the naval term again, but and we must keep it afloat. And it's across the board too. The council has a big job ahead of them too, to try to figure out all these other departments. But we're advocates for parks and recreation. That's what we're doing here, and so we want to really, you know, work on our side and try to get everybody on board. That's just my thoughts on where we need to go in the short term before the deadlines start coming up for the November election.
Director Black, do you want to move forward here, or is that the end of your presentation?
No, the only other thing was Commissioner Bell wanted to know about the feasibility of doing some town halls, and I would just hold off on that for now and bring that up at another point. But I wanted to, I think it's the right time to be getting these this out here and this snapshot, so that we're not just saying we're heading towards a cliff. We're actually putting an idea of what that cliff looks like and how big is the drop there. So it is significant. And again, you know, because we were able to save and create an ending fund balance, we've been able to continue to provide services that realistically were cut several years ago. You know, they were cut several years ago, but because we had an ending fund balance, we've been able to use that to keep ourselves afloat for a few years. Now, when that runs out, we're looking at a cut no matter what. Now, factor onto that, if the city council has additional cuts for Ashland Parks and Recreation, which is a very real possibility. If revenue does not increase, cuts are going to happen somewhere. And even if they happen across the board, we're still going to get some of that. You know, even if it's not all directed towards APRC, we're still going to get some of that if it's across the board. So these numbers that I'm giving to you and these deficits we're talking about are without the knowledge of what the future holds as far as general fund. Will it even be $1.89 in the next biennium? We don't know. We really don't know at this point, and there's no assurances at this point at all. So remember that there's the you know, it looks bad, but we don't have the full picture yet, and so there could be more to it.
Commissioner Eldridge.
Just a quick comment. Along those lines, you know, we were talking about SOU and OSF and Parks and Rec sort of being like the backbone of our community. And I know that SOU has been in deep discussions about how to change with changing times and how to adapt during those times. And of course, OSF is in the process of reinventing itself and working to adapt again to sort of changing times and seasonal changes and how they deliver their product. And so I'll be looking forward to the cost recovery, the reports from the cost recovery process. And I also would just like to take this moment to plant the seed for us to maybe engage in discussions along those lines as well. how is Ashland Parks and Rec going to adapt and change according to the changing times and stay up to date with the needs of our community. And I personally feel that the Trails Master Plan review is a part of that, but just a very small part. And I think it'd be interesting to have discussions like that in the future.
Yeah, and if I could just follow up on that really quick, I appreciate that because I think all of us recognize that we can't just keep doing things the same way forever because too much has changed, especially with water. That seems to be the one recently that we've been spending a lot of time talking about. And I can say, without letting the cat out of the bag, that one of our top 3 parks, and as far as acreage goes, we've been talking about the future of that and what it looks like because it's traditionally watered by TID, and the cost of using culinary water to water that is just astronomical. And last year was a devastating year for the budget that takes care of that particular place. And so we've been working hard and talking a lot, and we're actually meeting again this week, I think soon, and we're gonna continue to talk about how to do things differently. But we need to spread this around to the rest of the organization as well. So I appreciate hearing that from our our policymakers, that that's a direction that you do want us to go in, and we will talk more about it.
Okay, are we on to the next topic?
Sure. I think the other one was just the last one that Commissioner Bell had asked about was the town halls. And as I stated, I think we should hold off on that one for now, and bring that back in March and talk about that a little bit further, and whether or not that would still be a good method moving forward to getting information from the public.
Okay, next on the agenda, East Main Park design update. I understand we have one speaker. Do you want to give your presentation first, and then we'll have our public participant time.
Absolutely. And I'll just preface this with, I'm going to give a quick presentation because I'm only updating you on the process, not on the design itself. East Main Park is now a 6.5 acre park that was purchased in the last few years with money that was we've been able to take from other land sales that we've had, and a small amount of food and beverage tax that was dedicated to a second dog park years ago. And so we have a fund to design and develop a new park just off of.
Just let me, I want to just clarify one thing. And that is that East Main Park, the funds for that came from YMCA Park, which was sold. So this is not a new park, actually. Well, it is a new park, but it's really a replacement. It is not an additional. We lost one park for very good reasons, and this is our replacement park for that neighborhood.
Yeah, so if you drive by it when we build it, it might look like a new park, but in reality, we went down one park and we're going to go back up one park. So yes, it is a replacement park. We did have a park in this neighborhood, and there's a lot of backstory to the reason why we did sell that YMCA park to the YMCA. One of the big reasons was they were the exclusive user of it anyways, and it was using tax funds from our general fund to maintain it, even though they were exclusive user. So this park will be different. So the funds are available. We have moved forward. The Parks and Recreation Commission has authorized the expenditure moving forward. And we have been working with a consultant, a local consultant, Terrain Design. I'm very sorry. I was thinking of a survey company. But Terrain Design, landscape design, is Piper von Chaumier is the principal we're working with. And we've been really happy, I have to say, from a staff point of view, with the effort and the level of detail that's gone into getting us to the point where we are now with the consultants, which is going into being able to present a preliminary plan to the public. Now, I'm not going to present a preliminary plan to you here tonight because we haven't advertised this as a meeting where the preliminary plan would be presented. And so we are working on scheduling a public meeting with the public, to anyone interested, to talk about the preliminary plan. We expect that to happen within the next 4 weeks. We are still working on scheduling it, though, so I don't have a date for it tonight. And we plan on presenting the preliminary plan for all 6.5 acres, which will include various uses within the park, including active spaces, passive spaces. We are looking at designing a park that is lower in maintenance if possible. We do have some very preliminarily looking at this. We have some space set aside for a community garden, for a dog park, for pump tracks. There could be potentially 2 of them there, and a bike skills park, as well as all of the other active components that you would generally see at a park with Ashland Parks and Recreation, like, for instance, potentially a nature playground and maybe some sport facilities as well, court facilities potentially, and walking trails and pollinator gardens and the list goes on. I can't name everything here tonight, but I'd encourage people to keep an eye on our website and our calendar. We will also be sending notices out via Facebook and the press release, as well as the email list that we have of past attendees and those who have shown interest in this project as well. So that's basically my update now, is just to let you know the process is still going. Our consultants are following through with, in my opinion, the contract that we have with them. We are ready to present a preliminary plan, and we're just in the process of scheduling a meeting so that we can get that in front of them. And then I guess that isn't the last thing. The last thing would be, after that process, after hearing from the public, there may be changes that could be made to the plan. And that plan, we would go back with the committee. The plan would be looked at again in light of all the comments that were received from the public. And if there are changes to be made, they will be made. And then it will be presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission. You'll have a chance to view it on your own and hear from the consultant and myself, and to also take comments from the public at that time as well. So, and that is it.
Thank you. Sean, can you bring in our public participant at this point, who will have 3 minutes?
Okay, I am bringing in Kate Jackson right now. So Kate, you can turn on your video and
Hey there.
and I'll let you know when 3 minutes has passed.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. I've been listening to the meeting so far, and you have my sympathy and my support for all of the budget challenges. I want to really recognize the institutional knowledge with Rick Lawton and Jim Lewis, and then the newer members of the commission. I myself was on Ashland City Council for 9 years, back 2002 to 2010. I've been out working, and now I'm retiring and going to be more active locally. I've been to the public meetings for the East Main Park design, and I've also joined the B City Committee this year, brand new this year. December was my first meeting. So I did want to hear the report. We've been, one of our subcommittee members, Albert Pepe, is particularly interested in being part of the design discussions for the passive parts and maybe even the garden parts of the of East Main Park. And it just hasn't been clear to us whether there's other stakeholders that are already in those design meetings, or whether it's all going to be the public meeting you mentioned a month from now.
Kate, is that the end of your?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Since you've been so prompt, and I'm going to do something we don't normally do, but I'm going to respond to your question. I think it's very clear that the Bee City USA pollinator groups are a stakeholder for East Main Park. At this point, we're really talking about where the bathrooms go, where the trails go, etc. One of the last things, kind of the icing on the cake, are the plants. So when we get to that point, we will definitely need to. I'll give you my word that we will involve the Bee City USA. It just, at this point, we have a committee, and it does not happen to include a Bee City USA. And there's other people it doesn't include. But at this point, it's not the key time. The key time will be when plant selection starts, and that really hasn't begun yet. So that's, I think, the answer to the question. And I think we're going to leave it at that. But if I'd be happy to tender emails if people don't think that's a sufficient answer. Okay, we're going to move forward. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our director regarding the? And thank you, Kate. I really appreciate you coming before us, and I'm glad I get an opportunity to clarify that for you. Commissioners, anyone have any comments about East Main, questions or concerns they'd like to bring up at this point? Well, there's going to be a lot more to, once you see the plans, you'll have a lot more, and that's true for everyone. I'll have a lot more to say. So unless, I think if there are no comments at this point, we're just going to move along on the agenda. So next on the agenda is a proposal for security cameras at the perimeter of Japanese Garden. So Director Black, please take it away.
So I don't have anything to present today. This is not, I'm not asking for direction today or permission for anything. I just want to kind of prime you on a request that we will have. And unfortunately, I by this time, I'm working with the designer on the garden, and we do have a request, but I don't have the design, what these would look like. I can describe it, but I'll have to bring it back to you before I ask you to make a decision. So the Japanese garden has four corners. The Japanese garden will be, for all intents and purposes, it has four corners. The Japanese garden, I look at it as if we were building a structure, like a new building or something like that. It may not have a roof, but a lot of the other components it does have, and it's a pretty big investment. It will attract a lot of attention, I believe, in this community and outside of the community. And being a fully authentic Japanese garden, and the level of craftsmanship and history and culture and everything that goes into developing a garden like this is just. To me, it is, if you will, awe-inspiring every time I go there and see the progression. Unfortunately, I think there will also be a negative component because there will be an attractive part of this for people who are looking for a canvas, for instance, which we deal with in all of our parks everywhere. We have dealt with vandalism in all of our parks as long as we've had parks. There's a reason why there's no Lincoln statue. There's a long story behind it, and several attempts to thwart vandalism or give people the benefit of the doubt, or whatever you want to call it, has led to there being no statue out in the park anymore. Plus a snafu on sculpture and size of heads and things like that. There's more to that. But so I expect to bring a recommendation to you to look at cameras for use at the garden. And I think that the most appropriate thing would be to find a place and a time where they're the least invasive possible, and only accomplish what is intended and nothing more. APRC has used cameras in the past. We've worked with the police department at the skating rink. There is a camera there that the police department came through and asked for permission to put in, and it was put in. With a situation like this, it could be the type of camera that, I've kind of talked about this and batted it back and forth with several people, where the cameras could just monitor the exterior of the park in the evening hours, or after dark, and times where it's not actually staffed. And there's other ideas, like potentially the camera that's closest to the entrance could be on all the time, and could be just a streaming camera where people could log in and see what it's like at the time. Or there's places you can get on these cameras all around the world and look and see what's happening in plazas all over the world, and what people are doing in gathering places and things like that. And that could be a potential option. But the driver behind the request would be security reasons, and it probably won't prevent anything, but could help in determining and leading to people who are doing it, which in essence could potentially be a deterrent. The idea would be that the cameras would be not noticeable, that they would be on an elevated place. It would be a pole with a small tea house looking design, or tea house looking model on top of the pole that would have the camera inside of it, which the designer Toru Tanaka has stated he would design. I just haven't received a design yet to show you. And that, like I said, they'd be at the four corners, looking over the three different gates that enter into the garden. Vandalism is a real issue. It's not, we're not just saying this because we think that it could potentially happen. We end up closing restrooms, we end up closing facilities, we end up spending a lot of taxpayer dollars in trying to rehab places that have been tagged and things like that. And it happens, I think, more often than anybody notices. But in Ashland, we try, as the type of community that we are, we try as quick as we can to take care of the problem, so that people don't leave thinking, oh, it was great, except it's kind of this or that, or those types of things. So it is a real issue. It does happen quite often, and there are a lot of resources that go to resolving those issues when they do happen. If this could possibly be a deterrent in one way or another, and the expense is nothing to the citizens of Ashland, and we can find a way that it is not invasive on people's privacy during times when it'd have to be decided when those times were, then like during daylight hours and hours of operation, things like that. And I would recommend that we definitely look at this as a possibility, even if it's just a trial period, to see how it works. So there is no policy in the city of Ashland against cameras, FYI. I believe that, and I will, I don't think there's any reason why the parks commissioners can't approve camera uses in the parks. The parks commissioners have control and management of the parks and have the authority to make rules. And and to implement policy in the parks. And this is something you could do should you want to. Again, I'm not asking for your permission today, but I want to get it out there. And if there's anything that you would like to, before you make a decision, if there's things that you would like to see besides obviously a plan, where they're going to be located, what they look like, how much of the area you will be able to see, you know, those types of things that I will bring back to you. If there are other things, please let me know so that I can be prepared when I do come back and ask for or ask for some direction.
Commissioner Eldridge.
I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. What would, is there any concern that the public would not want this sort of thing? And are those primarily about like surveillance and privacy concerns, which is why you talked about having them not running during the day?
Yeah.
Else?
Yeah, so there's probably two things I need to explain. The idea would be if there is a way that maybe they only turn on at the times when the garden is most vulnerable, and this could be a model for other places as well, like the APRC fountain and any other art, and there's plenty of it, and there's plenty of vandalism that happens to it as well. Maybe it could be a model for other places as well, that maybe this could be a test. But that would be, I think, the primary concern. But I think, you know, you may hear from people who really explain it to you better than I can. So I don't want to say that I know all the issues that could come from it. But generally, what I've heard is that there is a concern that cameras are recording during the day and watching people's movements during the day when that's not really necessary.
Don't worry, your phone's doing that for you.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the camera. Worry about the smartphone in your pocket.
Commissioner Lewis.
There was
Go ahead.
really quick. I said there was one other thing I'd like to say. I didn't actually explain this. I said that there could be no cost to the public or to Ashland Parks and Recreation, which is the public money. There is a grant that is available for this from the Parks Foundation if it was approved. So,
Commissioner Lewis.
And as you mentioned, we allowed the police department to have a video camera at the skate park. And I'm assuming they have a video camera out front of the police department, and every bank in town that has an ATM has one. And a good percentage of the people in town have one on their doorbell. So, you know, it's not like this is creating a dystopic world, but it would be nice to know if other parks in Oregon maybe have similar situations in using these, and also I guess any other places that are have video surveillance by the city that they're using now, whether it's up at the wastewater treatment, or, you know, just anywhere we can already say, hey, this is what's happening now. And so it makes our decision easier if we have a little background on that. And yeah, I think other than that outside beautiful wall is potentially at risk. It's just you know, you mentioned it's like a structure without a roof. Well, the roof is the key to it. Anybody who has any kind of abilities could jump this wall, and, you know, it'd be nice to maybe limit that or keep that to a minimum. But you're right, this is going to be like the jewel in the crown, if you want to get into royalty at all. But this Japanese garden is going to be something that's really going to be special in the future of Ashland. And so yeah, I would like as much information as far as other communities. With the Japanese garden in Portland, I can't imagine they don't have videos there, but then I don't know. And so anyhow, that would be helpful for me.
So I'm curious how often the Prozzi fountain is vandalized and what kind of a cost is associated with that.
I can bring back that information for sure.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I can bring it back, and then I said because what I was going to say was we don't a lot of times our staff considers cleaning up things like that as kind of like a daily routine, and they're not logging it down every time it happens. But I can get you over the last 12-month period how many times it's happened and how many staff hours have gone into cleaning it up. We have people who do it to trees, to mountain, to anything, and it happens quite a bit, and it's very disheartening. But there has to be a balance. So maybe there's a balance where we can find a way to provide a little bit of protection without going too far with it. And I'll just say, on a lighter note, a lot of times people will bring up 1984, and if you recall, for me anyways, in reading that book, the big issue for me was when they watched you do calisthenics in your house. And I promise and even with in the park, if it's off during the day, we won't even catch you doing Tai Chi. So, I think there is a way that we could do this without going too far with it.
I'd just like to point out that the skateboard park is, I think, traditionally is a site of a lot higher vandalism than what parts of Lithia Park are. And I guess as someone who has an aversion to surveillance, I'm interested in making sure that the infrastructure is there, but I'm not so thrilled about actually instituting it until I know there's a problem. And at this point, we don't know there's a problem, although it will help to know what's been going on at Plaza.
I'm going to bring back information on all of Lithia Park, not just the fountain, because I think, we don't report on the vandalism to you regularly. I think it'd be a good idea for you to hear the amount of vandalism that is happening in the different parks. And we'll focus on Lithia this time. So.
Okay, well, I think unless commissioners have other comments, I think we're going to move on. Next on the agenda is open space plan revision discussion. And I think that I am going to lead this short discussion. There is the city of Ashland, via its comprehensive plan, has an open space, parks and open space plan. And historically, that plan is updated. The last full update was 2002. And then there was what was called a light update in 2012, but it really was just making a couple changes on the map. So it's really been 20 years, so it's really time for that. And in fact, one of our goals, APRC goals, is to update the plan. So that's nothing new. But I think we need to move forward with it expeditiously for a couple of reasons. One is that it is just so outdated. An example of that is that there is a property adjacent to Hillman School grounds that is designated for parkland. And having been on the commission at the time that was designated, I know the history of that, and that was that it was supposed to be land for additional soccer fields. But the plan was that it would also use Hillman School grounds in order to be sufficiently large to accomplish the goal. Well, now we're in 2022, and a few things have changed. Demographics have changed. We don't have as many people playing soccer as there were 20 years ago. We also have a all-weather, lovely field at the high school that also gets heavily used for sports, and there again takes pressure off the other fields. And in addition, the Hillman fields that we were going to incorporate into the soccer field is now going to being construction's going on there, and that is now no longer even available for the use. So we have a piece of property, and then we have another piece of property that's on the our open space plan is the Billings property. And, you know, I think it was really great. When the plan was first conceived, it was really ambitious. And because of that really, really far-reaching approach, we ended up now with a really robust system. But we also could say, given the realities of budgets and maintenance costs, some things that might have seemed not so pie in the sky 20 or 30 years ago seem really overly ambitious and unnecessary at this point. And so I think Billings Ranch is an example of that. But if you go through the plan, there's a number of pieces like that that really need to be reviewed. And basically, I think we can ultimately bring a proposal before the full commission to actually take things off the plan. As long as they're on the plan, they could potentially become part of our system. And I don't think there's with a few exceptions, there's really no need to expand our system at this time. And I think having our open space plan reflect that is just good governance. So we have a couple ways to go here. What I actually would suggest is that Director Black and myself kind of go through that the plan and bring it back to the commission. If that's acceptable, I think let's do that. If commissioners think they want to be more involved at a subcommittee level, then we can do it that way. So I guess I want to hear your comments at this point. Yes, Commissioner Eldridge.
For my own edification and education, I would be interested in either listening in on those conversations or being a part of a subcommittee. It's just an area of interest of mine, so I would like to be somewhat involved if possible.
Commissioner Lewis.
Yeah, it seems like that's a good way to go. I think the comprehensive plan is theoretically on like a 10-year update system, whether it's transportation or parks or any of the other parts of the city that the comprehensive plan deals with. And so it's just natural that we should do some house cleaning occasionally. And I think your point of recreation has changed in the last 20 years, and you've made some good points there. But for me, whether we need a subcommittee or not, if we had a good, solid discussion, you guys bring back some of the issues and we go over some of the maps and send us, this map's a little hard to deal with that you've sent us on the email because it's not that large and it doesn't expand that easily. But I think Commissioner Eldridge's point about the trails and the interest and the impetus and moving maybe some of the energy there and less on some of the fields. And you made some good points about properties that at a 1% growth rate, it's going to take a while for the urban growth boundary to expand past where we actually need some more parks, but and I think that would probably fall into place as that happens. So it's just long range planning is a good thing, and so I feel comfortable with you two getting together a discussion packet, and then we have a really robust discussion with hopefully 5-member Parks Commission and everybody's there. And if it's on the Zoom thing is for me, I know I keep being depressed about the Zoom thing, and it's wonderful that we have a way to communicate, but you know, some of the charrettes and having maps spread out, I really enjoy that, and it would be really nice to have that. And maybe I'm just hopeful and optimistic, but whether that fits in or not, doesn't really matter. We really need to have this discussion. And I would agree with Commissioner Lott that it's time for some housekeeping and discussion on what's important and what the long range plan is.
Thank you. Actually, I didn't fully flesh out what I had in mind, because I do think that it's going to require both a study session, at least one study session, and maybe more. So I'm not saying that this is, I just think that a lot of the work is pretty obvious, and I think that we could rather quickly come back to the commissioner at a study session, to the commission at a study session. And so again, I guess it's just, I guess, Mr. Eldridge, if that's sufficient for you, great. If it's not, then we'll add you to that, to the ad hoc subcommittee.
That sounds amenable to me. If we're gonna dedicate study sessions to discussing it and understanding it further, that should be fine. Thank you.
And I guess I'd just like to say, the other thing is, if at some point, if you'd like to meet to talk about it, I'm always open to individually meeting with other commissioners just for educational purposes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Lewis.
And this would absolutely need to have a full public meeting too, when we finally flesh it out and have the discussion and formulate the new maps and the verbiage, and then we'll take it to the community.
And I do need to point out that all we would be doing is making recommendations to the city council, because the city council, they're the ones who adopted the map. In the past, they have accepted our recommendations pretty much fully, but under the current circumstances, I have no idea. But that would be their process. Director Black, would you like to add anything?
No, I don't think so. I look forward to looking at this. I think it's time to do it. I think that that map is going to look a bit different when we're done.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it really is good timing, because we are under the microscope in terms of our revenues, our expenditures, and this is an opportunity to show some fiscal responsibility, that we aren't trying to build the biggest system we can. We're trying to build the system that as much as possible meets the desires of our community, but also fits within our budget. Okay, onward. Do we have any items for commissioners or staff? Well, in that case, we are going to just point out that we have a meeting next Wednesday at 6 p.m., a regular commission meeting, and we will adjourn at this point and hopefully see everybody back next Wednesday. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Good night.
you.